Somewhere off the coast of Miami sits an island where the dirt costs more than most people's entire life savings, and almost nobody lives there. Indian Creek Village sits in Biscayne Bay, just north of Miami Beach. It covers less than half a square mile. That's smaller than most golf courses, which makes sense because most of the island actually is one. The last census counted 84 people, total, not per block, the whole island. Now compare that to the land value. In 2025, someone paid $105 million for a single lot here, no house included, just empty dirt. This isn't some forgotten stretch of coastline nobody wants. Some of the wealthiest people in the country own homes here. A recent sale on the island just became the most expensive home purchase in Miami-Dade County history. Even the cheapest home available right now starts around $60 million. So here's the real question. If this is some of the most valuable land in the country, why isn't it covered in houses? Most places this valuable get built up fast. More buyers, more homes, more people. Not here. Something has been stopping that from happening for almost 100 years, and we're about to find out exactly what it is. To understand why this island stayed almost empty, you have to go back to how it started. In the 1920s, developers dredged land straight out of Biscayne Bay. Before that, it was a mangrove swamp, nothing more. They didn't build a neighborhood, they built a golf course. It opened in 1928, and for over a decade, that's all it was, a private club. Not a town, not a place with residents filing into City Hall. It only became an official village in 1939, and here's the strange part. It wasn't because people wanted a real town. A neighboring town was threatening to annex the land, turning it into its own village. It was the only way to stop that from happening. So this place was never designed to hold people. It was designed to hold a golf course and to protect itself from outside control. That single decision, made almost 100 years ago, still shapes everything about this island today. How many homes can exist, how many families can ever move in, even how the value keeps climbing while the population barely moves.
Now, I am going to tell you the exact number that's been frozen since the very beginning and why no amount of money can change it. When this island was first mapped out back in the 1920s, developers drew exactly 41 lots around the golf course. That plan never changed. Even today, the same golf course and country club still take up roughly 2/3 of the entire island. There was barely any land left over for houses in the first place. So when people say, almost nobody lives here, that's not really a choice, it's math. There's just no more room, no matter how much money shows up wanting it. The last census confirms it. 84 people, total, living across less than half a square mile. That's smaller than most single apartment buildings, sitting on some of the most expensive dirt in the entire country. Most neighborhoods grow by adding more houses. This one can't. The plan drawn up 100 years ago locked the number in place, and nobody since has been able to raise it. If that's surprising you already, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hit like and subscribe. This island isn't just short on land, it's basically running as its own private country. So the land is locked, but even if a house came up for sale, moving in isn't like moving anywhere else. This island runs itself. The 2020 census recorded only 12 households on the entire island. 12. Those residents vote in their own local government. They have their own mayor, their own council. It looks and works more like a tiny private country than a normal neighborhood. They also run their own security. A private team patrols the island around the clock, watching the roads, the water, and the shoreline. Between 2002 and 2004, the only crime reported here was one stolen cell phone. That's it, for years. They've even banned certain dog breeds from living on the island at all. Think about what that means. This isn't a place where you simply have enough money and someone hands you the keys. The people already living here control who gets approved, what rules apply, and how tightly everything is watched. So now we have two reasons nobody lives here. There's barely any land left to build on, and even the tiny bit that exists is guarded like a private club, not a public neighborhood. But here's where it gets even stranger. Some of the richest people on the planet did get in, and what they paid to do it will make your head spin. So who actually lives behind these gates? That's harder to answer than you'd think.
A lot of home purchases on the island don't happen under a person's real name. They happen through a company. A shell company, sometimes registered overseas, buys the land instead. The name on the public sale record is the company, not the actual person living there. One well-known purchase on the island was made this way. Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner's property was bought through Top Line Ventures Limited, a company registered in the British Virgin Islands with a Dubai address. The buyers' names never appeared on the public sale paperwork. The company's name did. Think about what that means for our original question. It's not just that almost nobody lives here, it's that even when someone does move in, the public record can be built to hide exactly who that is. That's not normal for a neighborhood. Normal home sales list a name, a family, someone the town can point to. Here, ownership itself is designed to stay private, layered behind paperwork most people would need a lawyer to untangle. So we have empty land, tight security, and now hidden ownership on top of it. 3 separate walls, all keeping this island the way it's always been. But some of the names behind those walls did eventually come out, and once you hear who they are, the size of this story changes completely. So, who are the people who actually made it past all 3 of those walls? Start with the most recent name. Mark Zuckerberg and his wife Priscilla Chan bought a home here for $170 million. That sale just became the most expensive home purchase in the history of Miami-Dade County. Jeff Bezos didn't buy 1 home here, he bought 3. He spent over $230 million assembling properties on the island. One of those properties was previously owned by a company with ties to Panama, but it's Bezos's name on the deals. He made no secret of moving in. And then there's Jared Kushner. He doesn't just own a home here, he sits on the island's council, the small group that writes and approves the rules everyone on the island has to follow. The government regulating this island is largely made up of the same people who live there. So this isn't just an expensive neighborhood anymore. It's a tiny, self-run world where the wealthiest buyers on the planet still have to work inside the same 3 walls. Limited land, tight security, hidden ownership. None of that stopped them, but it does raise a bigger question. If the land is this hard to get, what does it actually cost once you're in?
Let's talk about what this land actually costs, because the numbers don't make sense anywhere else in the country. In 2025, someone bought a lot on this island with no house on it, just dirt. They paid $105 million, not for a mansion, for empty land. Now compare that to what counts as cheap here. The least expensive homes on the island still start around $60 million. On most streets in America, that's not a starter home. That's generational wealth, spent just to get a foot in the door. Think back to everything stacked against buyers here. Only 41 lots ever existed. Most of the island is a golf course. Security screens who gets in. Ownership hides behind shell companies. And after clearing all of that, the price of entry is still tens of millions of dollars, minimum. This is what happens when land becomes almost impossible to create more of. Scarcity doesn't just limit who moves in, it sets the price for everyone still trying. Now we're getting into something almost nobody expects. This island wasn't even meant to be lived in full-time until very recently. Here's something that doesn't fit the story so far. For most of this island's history, nobody lives here wasn't just about scarcity, it was on purpose. For decades, these homes weren't full-time residences, they were vacation properties. Owners visited for a few weeks a year, then left, lights off, gates shut, a neighborhood of 40-something houses that mostly sat empty even for the people who owned them. That's been true for almost 90 years, and it's changing right now. More owners are actually moving in full-time, living there year-round, not just visiting. And part of that shift isn't only personal preference, it's political. California has a proposed ballot measure called Proposition 40. If voters approve it in November, it would impose a one-time 5% wealth tax on billionaires who were California residents as of January 1, 2026. It hasn't passed yet, but even the possibility of it is part of a broader pattern of wealthy residents relocating out of California and into states like Florida, where that kind of tax doesn't apply. So the island isn't just sitting on frozen land and locked prices anymore.
the people inside it are starting to actually live there, driven partly by decisions being made in a completely different state. Which brings us to a number that almost got buried in the data, one that tells you something surprising about who's actually inside these gates.
Here's a number that seems impossible for a place this rich. One older report on this island's census tract put the poverty rate at close to 29%. An island of $100 million lots, and part of the data suggests almost a third of it lives in poverty. Before you repeat that number anywhere, here's the catch. This isn't confirmed, and honestly, it's probably misleading. When your entire population is under 100 people, a handful of low-income workers can swing a percentage wildly. Groundskeepers, housekeepers, drivers, people who work on the island, not multi-millionaires who own the land. Count a few staff members inside a population that small, and the math produces a scary-looking number that has almost nothing to do with the homeowners themselves. It's a strange twist, but it fits everything else we've uncovered. This island was never built around a normal population. Not homeowners, not staff, not visitors. Every number here behaves strangely because the place itself was never designed like anywhere else. Frozen land, locked prices, hidden owners. Now a population so small that a single job title can distort an entire statistic. All of it traces back to one decision made 100 years ago that we haven't fully unpacked yet. That's next. So here's the real reason nobody lives on America's richest island. It's not isolation. It's not that people don't want it. It's a decision made almost 100 years ago when developers drew exactly 41 lots around a golf course and never planned space for anything more. That one drawing locked everything that followed. It capped how many homes could ever exist. It's why an empty lot can sell for over $100 million, why the cheap homes start at $60 million, and why the total population still fits inside a single apartment building. Every other layer we found, the private security, the hidden ownership, the shift from vacation homes to full-time living, all of it sits on top of that same original limit. Take away the frozen lot count, and none of the rest of this story exists. Money didn't build this island's scarcity, a 100-year-old piece of paper did, and no amount of wealth walking through the gates today can undo a decision made before any of these owners were even born. This video covers publicly reported real estate and municipal information. It isn't financial or legal advice. If this changes how you see wealth and land, subscribe for more places like this one.